Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next video lesson in this course. We are going to dive into something. Actually, today is going to be a little bit different. Today, I'm going to talk to you about some methodology. I'm going to lead you by the hand a little bit to ensure that you're looking at your progress in this way. Some of you might already be doing this. Many of you aren't, I'm quite certain. And so I'm going to show you how we need at the advanced level to go into more detail if we want to improve. Because as we know, the higher up, the more skill you acquire, the smaller the progress becomes. So from zero to pre-intermediate, pre-intermediate to intermediate, even to upper intermediate, you can go quite quickly. But from upper intermediate and advanced and higher, the increments of change are smaller. And that requires us to pay more attention to the details. And I want to make sure that you all are doing that. I've had a chance to talk to a lot of you individually about some of the issues in your language, your strengths, your weaknesses. I've heard you speak. And so I think this is a very important lesson, not just for the material today, but for how you approach other similar topics later. And we're almost going to get right into it. What I'm talking about, we're going to look at it with the grammar, the verb, object, plus the infinitive or gerund. We're going to look at that. All right, you have an introductory. The grammar part's what I'm going to focus on the most. Now, here's an introduction 1 to 9 that I think is like a pre-assessment. I want you to take it. I want you to, before you look at the answers, I want you to do all of them, answer them. Is it correct or not? If so, what's wrong? And honestly assess yourself 1 to 9. This gives you a good idea of what, how much work you need to do in this section. So I will explain, I think I'll explain now why I think it's so critical. Because verbs plus preposition or verb object preposition or verb object gerund are so common in our language, this constellation, this structure. We can say in linguistics, we call it syntax, is so common and so commonly confused or not executed correctly that I want to call your attention to it in detail. So go through it honestly and assess yourself. Now, that brings me to something else. If you're not honestly assessing yourself in these examples, and especially in the tests, then it's going to be really hard for you to understand how you need to improve. And for some reason, the higher you get, the less willing people are to show their weaknesses. I've noticed this also between the intermediate and the advanced classes. Very few of you are going into great detail. I say very few, probably 30 or 40%, which is still, I think, very high, actually. But some of you are saying, I did okay. But that's actually not a good answer. I want to know exactly what wasn't okay. And part of the reason I do that is for you to focus on the details. Okay, number 2 was wrong. Why? Number 2 and 4 are wrong. So then the next question should be, is there a relationship between 2 and 4? Is there a pattern or a gap in my knowledge that I need to brush up on? That's the point of my asking you for specifics on your test. We're going to automate that test soon, but in the meantime, I like the fact that we do it manually because it forces you not just to get your score, but to find out what you missed, which ones you missed. And then the next step is to find out why. Now, before we get to the grammar part, I just want to mention one thing that's really interesting. And this is sort of a difference between accepted practice today and old school English back in the day. And the type of English I spoke actually when I was in Oxford. Living at home may involve you paying. Now, today that is acceptable English. Back in the day, when Fowler wrote his very famous grammar book that the rules of writing, I think it was published in 1912, I read and reread that. It made an indelible imprint or mark on my life. Indelible. I got to write this down because it's a very big word. This book made an indelible impact or imprint on my life. It was Fowler's grammar or writing. It's writing or grammar. Rules of grammar or writing, and it was published in 1912. Now, I don't necessarily suggest you read it now because some of the ideas are out of date. Antiquated is a way of saying out of date. They're antiquated, they're out of date. So I don't necessarily suggest it unless you get the Fowler updated version from sometime in the last decade or 2 decades, or from the 90s, and perhaps that's fine. But back in the day, this would not be considered standard English. You would have to say living at home may involve your paying. Why your and not you? Because involve you is an object, and it doesn't involve you. It's not about you, it's about paying. So how do we get around that awkward double object after involve? Involve your, the possessive, you're paying. Now it becomes one object, paying. Who's paying? You're paying. So now we have one object instead of you paying. But honestly, most people were just not following this grammar rule. And so the rules had to cave in. This is a great word, great phrase here. The rules had to cave in to the masses. That means that they had to go along with what everyone else was doing. Just checking the microphone here. All right. Let's get right to the exercise here. I'm going to read these. All right. The grammar bank here is what we want to focus on. You're going to have exercises on the right that I highly encourage you to do with some time and when you're fresh. But what we're going to do before that, and I think it's even more important, the exercise we're going to do before this, I'm going to read these sentences. Actually, what we're going to do is we'll probably just skip to my sheet. So we have here verb plus object plus infinitive plus gerund. And then we have a few types: verb, object to, infinitive. The second type is verb, object, infinitive without to. And then finally, verb, object, gerund. Now, they have some explanations here, but it's pretty self-explanatory. They have 3 different formations with a verb object. It's either with a to, with a gerund, or with the bare infinitive. 3 basic types. Now, a lot of us confuse these types. We forget whether the preposition goes there. We forget if it's a gerund or just an object or an infinitive. So we have, there's some confusion on some of these, maybe not on all. So what I've done is I've devised what I consider to be the most common examples, the most common verbs, which I have to the credit of the book, they also mention these here. So I'm just, sort of going into more detail with common verbs, the ones you most often talk with or use. So let me make this a bit bigger so you can see it more easily. All right, here we go. This is very big. We'll go a little bit lower. Okay, so here we have them. Now, here's what I want you to do. We have 3 categories. The first category is the category, I know this construction and I use it, and I regularly use it. The second option is I know this construction, but rarely or don't use it. And then finally, the third category is I confuse this construction and need to work on it. Now, we're concerned, what I want you to do is note, I want you to actively note, we're going to go through all of these meticulously, line by line, and I want you to ask yourself with each of these, honestly, does it fall into category 1, 2, or 3? Now, with category 1, you're good. You don't need to do anything. With category 2, you are going to note it, and in the next speaking session, either in the speaking club or during the live or with your speaking partner, you're going to begin to practice it. You know it, but you need to practice it. Why? Because all of the verbs I've listed here are common and useful. Now, the third category is the one that obviously needs the most work. So before you get to the speaking club or the live or this with your speaking partner, you actually have to do some practice. You have to learn or memorize the construction and then create some sentences on your own, writing them or speaking them, or preferably both. This has to be done consciously. So I'm going to suggest 3 to 4 sentences. If you rarely use it, 1 to 2 before you get started with the speaking with a real live speaking partner. So this is going to take some preparation ahead of time. So let's go through it. Are you ready? 1, 2, or 3. Now this might disappear, so please remember the formula. I'm just going to read this and then one by one. So the first category is verb object. So I'm going to have to delete this, I think. The first category is verb, object, infinitive. Do we see that? Verb, object, infinitive. So here we go. And just as a reminder, here are the categories. All right. Advise. I advised her to reconsider her decision. Advised plus infinitive. Well, object infinitive. Allow. My parents allowed me to stay out late. Ask. She asked him to close the door. Now, once you place these in categories, you can do, let's say this one's in category 2, asked him to close. Maybe you sometimes, or you know it, but you don't use it. Then you create 2 sentences. I asked my brother to call me. I asked my husband or wife to wake me up in the morning. So you start to create sentences. And if you can create them on your own, you have a good chance of creating them with your partner. All right, so here we go. I'm going to continue, but I need to actually close. Well, actually, I can do this. Because it's a white page, I can put it here. All right, so here we go. Next, the child begged his mother to buy the toy. The noise caused him to wake up. The tool enables us to work more efficiently. The tool enables us to work. Next, the coach encouraged the team to keep practicing. I might be going too quickly. So take the time, think about, do I use the word encouraged correctly? Do I use the word encouraged? Do I use the word enable? Enable is not as common, so maybe you don't. I expected them to arrive by noon, but they didn't. The circumstances forced her to rethink her strategy. Forced to rethink. Can you help me? Here's a question, and you can always put these in question form as well. This creates another level of difficulty. Can you help me to move this table? Can you help him to study better? I intend him to take over the project. That one I don't think you use as much. That might be on that third list. She invited him to the party. I didn't mean to upset you. Didn't mean to upset. That actually, we need to, that deviates slightly because we don't have the object in the middle, but mean to, we have the infinitive here. The police officer ordered the soldier to stand. I persuaded her to join our team. Please, I'll slow down a bit. Please remind me to call the doctor. We need the object there. Please remind to call. Please remind me. We need that object to call. It took him, with time, hours to finish the task. It took him days or weeks to finish the task. My sister taught me to swim. He told me to wait. Now, this one I'm going to just highlight because we say this probably more than any verb on the list. And you'd be surprised how many times, even at the upper intermediate advanced level, I hear he said me or he told to wait. He told me to wait. He said to me, just so you know, just so in case some of you were unclear about said, because we often confuse these. Let's put it over here. He said to me, wait. He said, wait. He said, wait. He said, wait. He told me to wait. So if we need the me part, the object, you could say he said to me, wait, but also he said, wait. So this is a little bit confusing. He said to me to wait as well. He said to me to wait. Could also use that construction. All right. The lifeguard warned the swimmers to stay away. All right. Let's continue. Let's put those in categories. Again, we're concerned about categories 2 and 3. Now here we have the verb object gerund, verb object gerund. And I think you're going to quickly understand which of these is most or more difficult than another or the others. I dislike him. So dislike him singing, not dislike him to sing. I like, well, with like, it's different. I like him to sing. I know, I would like him to sing. So we can say, I would like him to sing. Let's put this here. I would like him to sing, but I like him singing. All right. She hates me constantly asking questions. She hates me asking. Can you imagine dogs flying? Again, are you using these in your spoken English or written English, and are you using them correctly? Number 4. The task involves you or you're completing 3 different stages. Task involves you completing. He keeps his sister waiting. Not keeps to wait, keeps his sister waiting. So would you mind me opening or my opening the window? Mind me opening. The security system prevents burglars from entering. Now, this one's slightly different, actually, because we have from entering. So let's hold off on that one, the from entering, but we have prevents entering burglars. You can also say the security system prevents burglars entering the home. That's also okay. I remember her telling me, I remember her telling me. Next, he risked his company losing money. Risked something losing money. She stopped him from making, or she stopped him making. You can use both. She stopped him making a big mistake. From is also possible. So we have these two here. Now, the final one is preposition with gerund, which these two could function in both categories. We have them here, but let's look at a few. She admitted, and here notice the prepositions are changing, and this is where a lot of you get confused. So these might be on your list. She admitted to stealing the money. Admitted to. Do you know that? If not, memorize it. And at this point, with such a finite group, you should probably just memorize them. He accused her of lying. So accused of something. He was accused of lying, if you want to convert it into the past. He was accused, but here we have the object. So here the object is afterwards, but here we have it, accused her, admitted to stealing. So I congratulated her on getting the job. So congratulate on, thank for, I thanked him for helping me. He blamed her for missing the bus. And finally, she apologized for being late. She apologized to him, if you want to get the object in, but it's a preposition. She apologized to him for being late. All right, so this would be slightly different in construction. All right, now I hope that I just want to talk to you for just a minute. I hope that's a clear pathway forward to helping you improve in some of these detailed areas. So let's go back up here. We're going to make the screen smaller and we'll continue. But I really think the grammar part here, you can go through these. You've got more examples here on your own. There's not much explanation to do, so you can go ahead and just do the exercise. And I would make note of all those you don't know or don't get correct and try to memorize them. All right, when we move forward, we're not doing writing. So here we have listening. Listening obviously is done with the listening or audio files, but I just want to make a few notes here about fancy. Fancy is a British term. Do you fancy going on holiday? This is in America, they would say, would you like to go? But in England, they'd say, do you fancy going? But this is not what the fancy is used here as an adjective. A fancy, so we have fancy dress party. It's fancy dress, meaning very formal or formal dress. And so a fancy holidays are expensive ones where you have a different, more, elegant type of clothing that you take with you. Bath is interesting because you have a bath, it's in the tub, just to make sure we all understand that. A shower is underneath this spigot, and the spigot is spelled like this. You're underneath the spigot, and the water is generally falling from above on your head. A bath obviously is something where you can take a bubble bath, you're lying down, and it's considered either more antiquated, old-fashioned because you don't have a shower, or more luxurious if you want to take a bubble bath and just enjoy the evening, perhaps with a glass of wine or something. People like to do that. All right. Now, vocabulary and pronunciation. This is really interesting and important, and it's called compound adjectives. And if there's one thing most learners of English don't do, it's put this little hyphen, or actually it's a dash between the adjectives. So we have here a hyphen. And sorry, I said dash, but I mean hyphen. So well-known. Maybe I should explain the difference between a dash and a hyphen. It's just occurred to me that a dash is a bit longer, and it normally functions like, so a dash would be something like this, double, and it functions as a colon. This is a colon. But a hyphen goes between two words. So we have well-known. This is a compound adjective. It has two parts: well-known, small scale, and so forth. I suggest that you take these very seriously, because they're very important to use. We use compound adjectives in English a lot, and you're going to have a chance to use them here in the exercises. And what I love about the English file is they choose the most common examples, not the ones that are difficult and you'll never use, but the ones that might be difficult, but that you almost certainly will use. And I like that about this book. So this is the first part of the compound adjective, and this is the second part. And as I say, they're common, so you want to know them and use them correctly. And again, ask yourself, have I ever used this compound adjective? If not, put that on your list of things to say during the week in the live speaking club or with your speaking partner, which I hope you're still carrying on with your speaking partners. It's very important. Well, we have a lot here, and I'm going to let you get to it. I want to wish you a happy studying, and we will see you very soon. Bye-bye.